morning, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Free Talk with Mr. B. This series is our series called Adult Communication, and today's episode says, "Can I read your mind?" Alicia, how are you?
I'm fine, and you? Can you read my mind? How am I?
I can read your smile. I can read your, what we call your eyes. And we say not really, but we brought, the answer is no for me. But we brought up this point because in adult conversation, it's just so much to say. And when us adults are starting to talk to each other, sometimes we speak to each other as if we can read each other's mind. But I have not been successful at that. What about you?
Me either. Not yet. Maybe with some practice, but no, actually, it's not possible. And as you said, we take to understand and make a lot of assumption. But basically, it's also linked to the last topic we had. So when we are facing a bad communication, that's when we tend to assume and think, okay, I think this person was thinking that, or we start to believing that we can read in their mind.
Right.
And basically, it's not possible, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately.
I think it's fortunately. I mean, we were giving a lot of skills, we were giving a lot of senses as we were made, and we can do a lot of things, but being able to read someone's mind could be a big disadvantage, even if we think it can be an advantage. So like you said, fortunately or unfortunately, I think it's fortunately I cannot read someone's mind. It just would just come with so much responsibility. If I knew what the person was thinking, I would have to always adjust my behavior. So I think it's, I'm rather being told. So I mean, I must just be fair. I think this one especially comes in couples relationships. Two kids in the street may not think about it, but as soon as we start doing these couple commitments, any kind of couples, we get into this read your mind scenario. Have you ever heard that some people say, oh, I'm so close to him or I'm so close to her that when they start a sentence, I finish it and things like that, like if...
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if it's a habit or it's a cause of listening or being attentive, but I don't think it's reading minds.
Of course, it's not reading in mind, and I do agree with you that by being attentive to the person and reading their body language also, or their non-verbal communication, they have clue of what the person is feeling. Also because the person allowed themselves to show emotion outside of the words, by not being stoic, by, I don't know, when they are pissed, having a little, I don't know, face that show that, oh, okay, I understand that when you make this look, you are upset. So it's also, I think it's both. The one should be attentive, and the other should also express outside of words. So the person can be attentive to those signs.
And that's a good point, because it means habits are formed with the person. So if you're around a person longer, you're familiar with their body language, which we plan to talk about some more. You're familiar with their style or familiar with their expressions. And also maybe the person is familiar with the person when they're excited or when they're mad or when they're upset. And so as they do certain things, I think at least I do, I said, oh, that person did that same thing before. So that means they're pretty mad, right? Or, wow, that person did that same thing before. Go ahead. Because it could mean that they're happy or something.
It's really linked to decoding the person. But we still have to understand that this is our translation, but it's not necessarily what we think it is. So give a margin of error. Okay, I think this person is upset, but also give the benefit of the doubt, or maybe I misunderstood. Because being upset is easy, but for example, if someone is, I don't know, what's a good example? Give me a minute.
You can have as many minutes as you need.
If someone feels resentful, I feel like this person has many resentment toward me because I decoded his behavior this way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I translated in the correct manner. So that's my decoding, that's my translation. But we still have to understand, oh, I don't read his mind.
Right.
At what point do we know for sure that the decoding is good, is accurate?
And that's the tricky part here, because we, and some couples or some relationships, they call it read minds, and reading it wrong is as I guess nauseating as maybe even reading it right. But reading something wrong, as you typically say, decoding it inaccurately, or making so many assumptions that they're reading the person's mind. And some people, I mean, based on behavioral practices, they can be close to what they interpreted it as. And I know you also use that word, the interpretation, but it can't be so accurate to say they read someone's mind. You know? So I can imagine a good guess. Sometimes I try to, and that's what I had to train myself to do, is not to assume what someone is going to say before they say it. And I see a lot of conversations where I start talking about something and someone makes all the assumptions as to where I'm going with it. And many times they're so wrong.
I'm guilty. I do this a lot. And I also believe that in couples, for people who live together for many years, it's hard not to feel that we know this person so well. So I already know when I say this, he will answer this, or he or she. It's easier when we don't know someone and we are still in the phase of getting to know their personality, or I don't know, their opinion, their values. But after a few years, I mean, what's your thought on this? After a long period with someone, long-term relationship, isn't it more difficult to be not to assume things on this person, on the partner?
Okay, so if I collect what you're asking, my answer would be, it's just as difficult after many, many years as it is in the first and early years. And especially if we take these habits and decode them, we can decode them accurately because everything is changing. The environment is changing, the trees are growing, children are grown, financials are changing, and we always assuming that this is what the person is thinking. We are assuming we can read their minds, but it's kind of a fool's game. It's an error in our perceptive power. We can perceive a lot of things based on what we gather from the past, but very, 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 very hard to really read the minds of people, even if you've been around them for a long, long time. And that's my strong opinion, and I'm sticking to that.
We agree on this point.
Okay. And again, like you mentioned, in a relationship, we can see moods, but it requires learning. I think we all need to keep learning, and relearning our partners. We need to keep listening, and re-listening. And I think there's a big angle on adult communication, and this one title being, Can I Read Your Mind? To kind of get into the couples scenario, because many couples struggle with communicating. And when they get assistance or seek assistance from family or professionals, I think that's one of the points that come up about, oh, in order to have a good relationship, you need to communicate a lot. And I don't think there was ever a time, at least in the programs I've seen or television or other media, that someone says, oh no, you must stay silent in the relationship, stare into her eyes and read her mind, or in your case, read his mind or your partner's mind. I don't think it's a good advice, and I don't think it works.
I mean, if we are talking about a good communication, of course, we need the silence to listen, to take time to listen, but of course, not remain silent.
Correct. And so even listening, we have other titles coming up in the different series of this podcast to talk about some additional ways of communicating and listening. But this one, yes, it doesn't say read minds. And so in order to assess what's in someone's mind, your children's minds, your family's minds, your employees' minds, your employers' minds, in order to do it, we almost have to always ask them what's in their mind, what are their thoughts, right? And listen to their answers. What's your experience been at work, for example, with your colleagues?
At some point, I think I stopped trying to know what is in the mind of the others. Because as you were saying, if we constantly know what people around us think, we would constantly adjust. And I feel much more comfortable by limiting my need to know, oh, what are they thinking, and just behave naturally. And unless there is a strong, I don't know, a strong reaction or something really important, I feel like I should ask, or maybe they come and tell me. I'm not asking. I don't.
Oh, okay, and you just made an interesting point too, because our own personal behavior, if I'm catching you right, are impacted by what we perceived or what we think someone else is thinking. And every time we do that, we're adjusting ourselves to fit. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And so very good point, because I've lived through that in a sense. And it comes into more perception and perceptive power. So if I perceive that they're looking at me, I might do something to adjust my smile, my clothing, my attitude, because I keep thinking they're looking at me. And that's what I'm trying to read their minds. And maybe they were not even looking at me at all.
Yes.
And what a waste, right? And
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah.
if we are at work and we're thinking that someone is competing with us or judging us, oh, that could be a stringent, laborious kind of lifestyle to have, always adjusting for what we think someone is thinking.
Yes, really tiring, especially for people who have low self-esteem. I think it's really it's really linked to trying to know, oh, what are the others think about me. And especially with low esteem, we tend to think, oh, they have negative thoughts. They think low about me, when we don't have any proof of that. It's really I don't know, self-sabotage, thinking that, oh, everyone is looking at me and is judging me, when
Wow.
there is no proof.
That's a strong word, self-sabotage. Wow,
Yeah.
I believe that to be true. I think I lived through that and I had to escape it. But yes, wow. That is
And
an interesting one.
the issue is that if we believe that others are judging us and have negative opinion, we will also tend to behave in a way where they are right. So in our mind, okay, he thinks I'm bad. So by thinking that every day, I will start to make him feel that, oh, he was right. So this is really the self-sabotage part. And being free from trying to understand, trying to know what others think about us is amazing.
Wow.
Life changing.
Yeah, because you're liberated from that self-destruction kind of attitude or self-sabotage attitude. If we are not thinking about what other people are thinking, if we're not perceiving that we can read their minds and thinking those kind of thoughts, or even the opposite is very healthy for us too. So could you imagine a relationship at work or at home or social where we may start reading minds, as it were, thinking everyone likes me so much?
Yeah.
Because that could be the other self-sabotage approach too. And it took me a
Yeah.
lot of years. I mean, I wanted everyone to like me, but it took a lot of years for me to realize that's never going to happen. Everyone is not going to like me.
Yeah.
So was I reading their minds, you think?
Yes, same concept. And I also read self-sabotage. Why? Because if I have the opinion that everyone likes me and I'm doing good, I'm amazing, it leaves little room for improvement
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
all need to improve and grow on things. But if I feel like, oh, he thinks I'm amazing, so I'm not trying to change because I'm good and everyone thinks I'm perfect.
Right, right. That's a good point. Wow. I'm really glad you brought that out. I had a style of behavior at work that I always wanted to bring the results. And one of my last mentors at work said, I'll call me at the time Mr. B. Let's say he's called Mr. B. Why would you wait so long to check with me to bring those results? Are you reading my mind? Are you trying to think that I'm thinking that I only want to know how you're doing when you come with those perfect results? And he always thought that if you go so far into it and you're dead wrong, then you would have wasted all of that time thinking that you're dead right and that I would have approved of it. So if you brought it to me at the first 5%, 10%, 20% mark, by the time you get to 80%, you would be on track because you would have already communicated with me without trying to read my mind all the way. And so that 80% mark would say, you and I would say, wow, because we were both on the same track. But
Mm,
you were using the read your mind method to say, get to 80% and show it to him and he's going to love it. And then
yeah.
he didn't love it. And so I was setting up my own disappointment.
Wow.
He said, oh no, go back to the drawing board, start over, go to 5% and communicate with me every 5%. So until you get to that 80%. So we both are succeeding. And in relationship, whether it's a relationship at work with the boss or relationship at home, you may have to take each of these steps and say, hey, I'm cooking this particular meal. I'm trying to learn how to do it.
Mm,
And it's not turning out well. And
yeah.
the person says, well, what step did you do? Well, I would have to go all the way back to the 5% mark. It would have been better if I involved the person early instead of reading their minds, thinking they would
Yeah.
really be so happy with me if I got all the way to the 80% mark. That experience, you're
Yeah.
nodding so many yeses, that experience must have happened to you too.
I it's interesting because I thought about vulnerability and how um we fear to be perceived as uh not capable, not able to do things. So we want to prove our own, how you call this, worth. So we don't want to show something that is not 100% achieved or that is not 100% excellent. But it's the vulnerability to accept that, oh, I'm not perfect, so of course I'm learning, so I tried my best. So what's your opinion about this? Can you tell me how can I improve or what can I do better? So it also has a ego. We have to put our ego on the side because the example with your boss, of course, you are goal oriented, so you want it to be perfect
Yeah.
at the first shot. But his perception of or what he's waiting from you might be different of your own vision.
Yeah.
So you have to share with him what you are doing so he can correct your trajectory. But you have to be vulnerable
Yes.
to accept that, okay, maybe I'm going in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's work together so
Oh
we can
gosh.
make
And it was
progress.
really and you're so right. It was really my ego. And in order to humble myself, I had to start going back and says, by 5%, is this the direction you want to take this? He couldn't read my mind and I couldn't read his mind. So it was so much easier. And I learned it from him very well. And he always likes that I would come to him very early and says, look, here is the frame. What is it? Okay, yeah, you're going to, oh, no, you're not going the right direction. That's not what I was talking about. Maybe you wanted tabular compared to itemized in another way, and then you would say, oh, good, you saved me a lot of time and effort because I was thinking that you wanted it to go this way. And so I couldn't read his mind when he requested the results. And so this read your mind works in every aspect of our lives, because we can be happily going the wrong direction. We can get to 100%, but we could be 100% wrong. And so it's better to be 5% wrong than 100% wrong, because we can correct 5% a lot easier and make adjustments to 5% much easier than adjusting the 100% and in our lives.
I like this because I feel that it's also his responsibility, not him specifically, but the responsibility of the person to also remember, I'm talking to him, I told him to do this, but he doesn't read my mind. So let me be clear, as clear as possible. So what I'm expected is understood in the first stages, instead of saying, oh, I had experience like this before in my previous jobs where my manager would tell me, oh, can you make this and that, without giving me proper instruction on what they are expecting. So I do it my own way because they told me, do as you want, let your creativity go. And then I do my best and they tell me, oh, it's not what I was expecting. So unless we are willing to let the person do their own thing, if we really have expectation and limitation, we also have to express it, because they don't read our mind. We don't read
Right.
theirs and they don't read ours.
And it's definitely an important point, and I'm so glad we were able to go over it in adult communication, because as we grow from children into adulthood, and adults are all over the earth reverberating and recommunicating to children, we want to remind each and every one of our listeners and the family members and people who are learning that we cannot read minds, and we will improve and enhance communication and give good reciprocal feedback so that we can be successful adults and successful adult communication. And this works in every aspect of our lives. And so let us not be shy. Let us not be egotistical. Let us not be burdensome. And Alicia, I thank you so much for covering this subject with me. You're right here on Free Talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to another episode, because we will continue our series of adult communication. And I would continue to appreciate your support and those colleagues and acquaintances of yours that you want to bring on and cover these very subjects. And we look forward to all of you coming in on the next episode of Free Talk with Alicia and Mr. B on adult communication. Thank you so much.